That's what we're doing. Connecting to the cloud server, and we are recording. We are a go. So welcome, welcome, welcome again to the Arc of Joy in the classroom. Folks are still joining, which is a beautiful thing. Welcome. Come on in. Come on in. Come on in. We are going to get started. So take a moment to read this narrative. I'm going to invite you to interrogate the text, if you will. So let me say this, few disclaimers. One, hopefully you've got a pen, a piece of paper, you're taking notes on your computer, you're finding a way to capture some information that you can take with you. We want to be good note takers, we want to be engaged, and we'll get to all of that. But the first task, the first ask is for you to look at this slide. This session will provide insight into teaching practices that are joyful for students because they center active learning, restructured, relevant, and responsible instruction that is culturally conscious, collaborative, and connected to students' lives. And so I'm going to invite you to interrogate the text by listing some reasons these aspects in teaching of teaching and learning are important or valuable. Take a moment to interrogate this statement by listing some reasons that these aspects of teaching and learning are important or valuable. I want you to frame your own learning as we prepare to go on this journey. And I'm going to be quiet so you can do that. I see active learning in the chat. Yes, indeed. That's what we are here for. That is one takeaway, one reason why this is necessary. All right, that's our minute. So netiquette, you've taken the notes, right? I'm intentional about starting you with an activator, starting you with some work, and we'll walk through what our expectations are. So for the netiquette, I want you to be on. This is a recorded presentation. As you heard Kathy remind me to start the recording. So if you don't want to be on camera, we totally understand that. But by being on, we just mean that you are engaged, that you are active, that you are participating in the work in much the same way you would want and hope your students to do. And so obviously I can't make you do that, but certainly I want you to do that. Yes. And so as Rita Pearson says, the great Dr. Rita Pearson, thank you, God rest her soul, Miss Guth or Gauth, Guth, maybe, Caitlin, thank you for lifting that, right? People don't learn from people who don't like them or from people whom they don't like. Absolutely. So there's some relationship that has to happen there. So we want you to silence any alerts that you might have. Once it's Guth, awesome. Once we capture everyone in the session, we won't hear pinging anymore either because everyone will have logged in. Okay, so engage with the content, use a computer if possible. I'm going to drop a lot of links, provide you with some resources, and I want you to be able to hit those in the moment from the computer if you can, and not on your phone, because sometimes that cannot be very helpful if you get it on your phone and then you have to figure out how to email it to yourself and all of that. So if you have a computer and you're using it, you're going to use it and need it for today. And then finally, if you are not speaking, please remain on mute. However, we do encourage you to speak out and share your story, share your truth. All right, so a few working agreements, right? First and foremost, always take care of your needs, but be open to new ideas, interrogate ideas, not people. You may hear some things that you don't agree with, and that's fine. But let's try to figure out why we don't agree with that idea as opposed to not agreeing with the person. Reflect on your own practice. So again, when you do things that might be challenging to you or are difficult for you to wrap your brain around, think about why you feel that way. Reflecting on your own practice will help you get a better experience in this. And then finally, have fun learning. I had a professor at Wayne State University, Gordon Moreland. He taught methods of teaching science, and he said that learning was fun, understanding, knowledge. Now, obviously, knowledge is a KN, but it still makes the N sound. So in his mind, it was all right, and it's all right with me too. Let's have some fun today. All right, so our next action. Dr. Gholdy Muhammad is one of my favorite research educators, period. right now. She has provided us with a body of work that is really, really, really impactful, and centers children and joy. One of the reasons why I like kind of was asked to lean into the summer learning blitz and joy. That's what this entire series is about. So if you check in with us in the month of August, the summer learning blitz has a focus on joy, right? So welcome. Joy, per Dr. Muhammad, is the ultimate goal of teaching and learning, not test prep or graduation, right? Learning should be joyful. When you see children out playing, they are learning also, and it is joyful. We should be leaning into how we enjoy, teaching and learning. So I invite you to read and reflect, and then respond. What brings you joy at work? And what do you think brings your students joy at school? You can put it in the chat, or you can come off mute and share it. So in the chat, I see there's someone waiting in the waiting room trying to come in. Oh, that's why we keep getting the one ping. Thank you. I don't see them though. Kathy, do you see someone trying to get in?
I don't have access to that. You didn't make me a co-host, so
Okay.
I don't know.
Oh
Sorry.
Lord, we got 37 people in the waiting room.
Oh, let him in.
Admit them all. My goodness. Okay, here we go. Sorry, folks. My apologies. Welcome, 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 everybody. Welcome, 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 everybody. It looks like some people have dropped off. Maybe. All right. You are in the waiting room. Please come on in. Come on in. Thank you, iPhone, for sharing that information with me, because I kept seeing it ping, but I didn't see the numbers go up. So thank you. Yes, connection with students, coworkers, and parents. Absolutely. So the joy is about connecting, right? I ask you, what's joyful about the work that you do? What's joyful about teaching and learning? What do you think is joyful for your students? Having fun. Yes, we want to have fun when we're learning. And so hopefully you are jotting these things down somewhere. If you're just joining us, if you just got in, my apologies. Please go ahead, click the link and get yourself signed in. We are talking about the arc of learning as it relates to joy, the arc of joy in the classroom. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And please think about joy as the ultimate goal of teaching and learning, right? Not test prep, not graduation, not compulsory attendance, not, in school suspension and discipline and all of that, but the joy of learning as the ultimate goal. Yes, seeing children teach and learn from one another. Excellent. Thank you all. I think we're on track here. We got what we need happening in terms of folks being let into the session. Again, my apologies for missing that. So we're talking about the arc of joy in the classroom. And so ARC is the physical arc, and the A.R.C arc is a framework that I started to think about as a school principal. I'm doing a lot of research, trying to be a good leader, active learning, restructured, relevant, responsible instruction, culturally conscious, connected, and collaborative. These are ways that I thought about learning for students as a way for it to be joyful, right? When you think of learning, active learning, what we know is not is sit and get, which is something that we have often talked about even as professionals. Like nobody just wants to sit and listen to somebody talk at them. And so you're going to do a lot of the heavy lifting today, which really is what active learning is about. And I'm going to lean in. I'm going to ask you to do a lot of things. I'm going to ask you to read. I'm going to ask you to write. I'm going to ask you to think, to respond, to reflect. And so those are the things that I believe are relevant and necessary in order for students to feel connected, in order for students to feel joy in their learning. So the A is for active learning, talking and listening, reading and writing, reflecting and creating. I want you to pause and think about, what do you need to do to engage in learning for your own growth and development? What do you need to do, right? What do you need to do to engage in learning for your own personal growth and development? Pause and think about what you need to do. How do you see yourself as an active learner? And so I see in the chat, have a goal, research, goals, structured routine, prepare. Yes, I never wanted to go into a classroom cold. Collaborate and discuss with others, moving and talking. Yes, having a plan, working with others, discuss and prepare, collaborate. Yes. So the same things that you need as an adult, our students need in the classroom. And so our hope today is that we will look at some strategies that help us to do that for students in a way that is meaningful for them. All right, so this research is from the University of Minnesota, Center for Educational Innovation. And from the very simple to the very complex, they list out different activities, different ways, different lessons, different engagements that you can use with your students to help them be active in their learning. And so we've already done quite a few of these. We've done some pausing for reflection. We have jotted some things down in terms of what we think about that reflection. I have encouraged you to lean into your practice, right? So that is self-assessment. In a way, in the chat, we're having some large group discussion, right? And so you see that from the simple to the complex, you move up the ladder of activity, right? So continue to talk in the chat, continue to connect with each other in the chat. You all are sharing some very, very important activities, strategies, ideas, work that you do, processes. And so we need that because we all learn together. Definitely need to understand why you are doing an activity. Do you want people to reflect? Do you want them to create or produce something? Do you want them to reflect on their own practice? Do you want them to create something new, right? So why are you having students do what you're asking them to do? So I put my favorites in the upper left-hand corner. So you'll see the 3, 2, 1, analogies, the quick write, assessing prior knowledge, because I believe that students come with a wealth of knowledge. And so if we don't assess that and figure out what we know, we've done a disservice. Like, I make no assumption that you all don't already know what active learning is. You're here to be in community with other people who understand active learning and want to be a part of that. And so we're going to do that together. Chain note is one of my favorite things, and focused listening. Right? So we're going to do a chain note. So as you look at this continuum from simple to complex strategies for getting students or learners involved, I want you to, in the chat, share the active learning strategy that you would like to share and why. So go ahead and start sharing the activity you would like to try and why. And so I will model that by saying, I love chain notes because they allow for everyone's ideas to be shared. So the idea of the chain note is that you write down a thing, someone else can piggyback off of your statement or write something new. And so you have the opportunity to continue to have this collaboration or this chain note, and you can do it digitally or virtually the way we are doing it right now. Chain note, I'm not sure of what it is and how it works. So a chain note is just everybody is going to write something. So imagine in your classroom that you had a big whiteboard and you had dry erase markers. And so one student could go up and write about, I find fractions to be difficult because I'm not sure about decimals and how they convert, right? And so another student might come up and write something that relates to that. And so each student will have the opportunity to write down what it is they're thinking about fractions and decimals. And so you create this space of learning where everybody is able to kind of dump their thoughts. And in that thought dumping, you generate new thinking. You generate new opportunities for students to learn from one another. And in that, you can get to a lot of clarity, right? Because students often learn better from one another than they do just from us as teachers. And so I see a lot of strategies in the chat, a lot of chain noting about what you like to share and why. So in this particular instance, our chain note is going to provide new favorite activities that everybody uses. And so we're going to save the chat. We're going to make sure that you have access to that, and you can come back and you can see, right, what some of these new activities are. So I see role playing. It allows everyone to express their own point of view on a subject and collaborate with others. Peer review. I love peer review too, hearing from a peer rather than always hearing from a teacher. And I like to flip that on its ear, because when I think of PLCs and sometimes how resistant we can be as teachers, think of your PLC as a peer review, having the opportunity to talk to your colleagues about what's working in class, what strategies you love, what things you still are learning about, what do you want to do that's new. I think pair share because it helps students collaborate with peers. Yes. Role play, once again. Active review sessions. I use Google Slides to make fun games to review geography of the area we are learning about. I find it to be super engaging. Yes. Gamifying learning is another way to create joy for students in the classroom. Group evaluations. Students can draw deeply from their peers, questions and responses. Absolutely. So group evaluations is a lot like chain notes, where you generate, continuous thinking or continuous thoughts, and they're all chronicled kind of in one place. And everybody has the ability to access everybody else's learning. It's not cheating, it's great learning. Socratic circles, I love. More think, pair, share, self-assessment. Absolutely. When I look at my own work and I can say, I could do better than that, right? How can I improve on my own stuff? The teacher doesn't always need to tell me that. Project-based learning, absolutely. Allowing students to go down that rabbit hole. That's how you get to rigor. Jigsaw discussions, yes. Think, pair, share. Lots and lots of chain notes. So there are over 50 of us, I think, on over 50 of us on this call, so I won't read them all. So a data-obsessed question: how is joy measured? Self-reported, calculated, engagement. I'm glad you asked. I would measure joy by students' eagerness to want to be in my classroom. Do they come to class on time? Do they immediately get started? Do they ask lots of questions? Are they excited about the work that I'm asking them to do, right? Those are ways to measure joy. But you could also do a Google form and say, hey, do you like coming here? What would you like to learn more of? What would you like to do less of? We're actually going to do the 3-2-1 strategy, so bear with me as I get on down the road. And so that probably means since we have exhausted our chain note and people are putting their activities into the chat and sharing that information, I'm going to share one more of my favorite things, which is analogies. And so I have 2 analogies for you to consider. My first analogy is joy is to happiness as unit plan is to lesson plan. So the joy of creating this unit plan, this work that you're going to do over 4 weeks or 6 weeks or 8 weeks or a semester, right, brings you great joy. The happiness that you get, though, is the day-to-day lesson. It's what we do every day that makes me happy. But this unit plan that I've created really brings me joy. The other analogy that I would like to share is teaching is to learning as studying is to mastery. When we teach, we have to study in order to teach well. That's where that planning comes into play. And so learning, right? If I'm learning something, I learn it to master it. I don't learn it to be mediocre. I don't learn it to forget it tomorrow. I learn it so that I can master it and it becomes a part of my working knowledge, right? As a student. So just two analogies on teaching and learning and joy that I wanted to share with you, and I'll repeat those one more time. Joy is to happiness as unit plan is to lesson plan, and teaching is to learning as studying is to master. My couple of analogies that make me think differently or intentionally about why I do and how I do what I do. So we're moving on from the A, but I want you to be mindful that the A is a big umbrella, right? Because active learning encompasses the work of the R and the C. And so our R is for restructured, relevant, and responsible instruction. Restructured, relevant, and responsible instruction. So I have a link that I want to drop into the chat for you, and that link is to a like a little handbook, if you will. It allows you to build some community with your students. You should have viewing access. It's a PDF, so you can download it or do whatever you want, but you won't be able to alter it in the state that it's in. Please let me know if it doesn't work. I'll make sure that we get it to you later if you're not able to open it. But this is about the first couple of weeks of school, right? Because what you don't see here is R for relationship or relational instruction. And so I just thought about that as I was sitting here and kind of working through this, like, oh, I should have included that. I love alliteration, so you're going to get a lot of R's out of this because we're just going to talk it through. But relationship is critical. Somebody quoted Rita Pearson. I think that was Miss Gooch. And what Rita Pearson tells us is that kids don't learn from people they don't like, right? And so that relationship is important to establish because that's how kids know they can trust you. That's how students know that they can depend on you. That's how students feel comfortable and safe learning from you because they know that you're not going to ridicule them, that you're not going to berate them, that you're not going to belittle them, but that you are going to treat them with love and kindness and respect, and they are going to want to be in your class. Another way that you measure joy in the classroom is like, do my students talk to me? There are some students who will come to you in the hallway. Hey, I missed you today. When do I come to your class? Or what are we doing in class today? And you're like, you come here in 1 hour. Like, why are you here right now? It's because they're connected to you and they want to have that relationship with you. So R is for restructure. When you begin to restructure how you use time in your classroom, right? You have a reliable routine, something that you can make sure that students always have access to. I'm using a PowerPoint deck today, but we are still in the R because I need you to know that this is where we are. We've left the A behind. I share that with you. So we are leaving the A, we're now in the R. The R is for restructure, restructuring how you plan your lessons, making sure that students know what's happening and breaking it up. So as you can see, those pieces are chunked out by 3 to 7 minutes, right? 3 at the minimum, 7 at the maximum, because for most people, including adults, that's all our little attention span can hold, especially with cell phones and all other kinds of distractions that we have. Apple Watches, right? Technology draws us away a lot of the time from what we need to be doing for sustained, right, learning or sustained attention. So have a routine so that students can check in to see where you are at any given point in time and making sure that you are alternating the time that you speak with the time that students have to speak. So back to the point about the PowerPoint slide, right? So if you run your lesson on a PowerPoint slide, kind of like we're doing today, you want to then write the agenda down, a chalkboard, a whiteboard, a bulletin board, a chart paper, whatever you need so that students can follow. And I'm going to be quiet now because I have a couple of things for you. 1, what questions, concerns, or comments do you have with setting reliable routines? And or what would you like to do differently as it relates to establishing routines in your classroom? So think about that. What questions or concerns, comments do you have about setting reliable routines? And then what would you like to do differently as it relates to establishing routines in your classroom? All right, so it's not opening for you all. I'm gonna find you a link that works. I got it, I plucked it out of my Google Drive. I thought it would work because it's a PDF, but let me do this differently. While you're working on that question, I'm going to work on, or those 2 questions, I'm going to work on getting you a link. Can somebody please come off mute and tell me what the 2 questions are, or what you think the 2 questions are?
What's a concern that we have and what's something that we want to try?
Excellent. What concern do you have about reliable routines, and what is something that you want to do differently? Something that you want to enhance in your practice. So go ahead, think about that, and I'll be right back. Okay, you can try that second link. And I see some responses. I usually have a daily routine, but find it often hard to fit in everything we need to do each day in just a 53-minute period. Absolutely. But you would rather overplan, Megan, and I'm glad that you do that. You have more work available than what you can do in the reasonable allotted time. And so think about what you might do to get the most out of that, right? What can you do to get the most out of those 53 minutes? I've got a crying baby with me, but my concern is with how different our schedule is every day with different specials. Some days we have back-to-back specials, some days none at all. So Ms. Guth, I don't know. How you can request the schedule in advance so that you know what to expect. Critical to establish reliable routines, not just for my students, but for me. Absolutely, adults need routine as well. Kinders thrive on routine, right? They're early learners just coming to school, definitely. And I find that for littles, visual schedules are sometimes better. Great, I'm glad that link is working for you now. All right, so thank you for sharing and leaning in to what you can do differently to restructure your time and create some reliable routines for yourself and for your students. Yep, definitely visual schedules. Consistency is key, right? We want consistency, and our students do too. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. That is a Brené Brown quote that I take with me everywhere I go. To be clear is kind, to be unclear is unkind. So by providing a reliable routine that our students can count on, we are being clear, and that is kind to them. R is for relevance. So relying on realism. How do you make connections between the curriculum you have and the students you teach, right? Whether it's EL for education or Engage New York or, Houghton Mifflin, Harcourt Brace, whatever it is that you are given to use to teach, to impart content and learning to your students, how are you connecting it back to them? Because relevance is not for adults, it's for students. You cannot get them to engage if you don't provide an entry point that they can access. How do you make connections between the curriculum and the students you teach each day? You got to learn how to tell the story in multiple perspectives, because oftentimes in our textbooks, it's a one-sided perspective. It doesn't consider all of the players. It considers who wrote the story. So then how do you dig a little deeper, right? Pushing yourself. So Amber says, I have my students make inferences from screenshots of text between 2 students. They're fake, obviously, but they love it. Yes, plan ahead, Know your grade level and your audience. Yeah, we talked about that planning ahead. That is critical. How do you supplement the curriculum so that you know that it's going to land well with your students? That's the other thing about relationship. You can't teach people you don't know. You got to know who you're reaching out to. And because when we structured this session, right, the arc of joy in the classroom, I'm thinking folks are going to read the scenario, they're going to read the blurb or whatever of what this is about, and they're going to come prepared, right, to hear how they can infuse some joy into their classroom. And so my hope is that you are picking up on the ideas, right, that students need to feel included. They need to feel seen. They need to feel heard. They need to know that what they are learning is going to benefit them. Teach me something that I can use. Because if this isn't helping me be a better person, a better student, a better human being, a smarter individual, why am I doing this? I've had students create a narrative story using different parts provided. They had the chance to choose their main character, the problem, the plot, and the story using made-up scenarios. That's beautiful, Miranda, because stories are what help us to learn, right? Storytelling is a beautiful art that helps us to remember details, facts, dates, ideas. We can make connections to stories. It's difficult to make connections to, facts on a sheet of paper, but you can definitely make connections with students using storytelling. And that is a source of joy. Everybody loves a good story. It also helps to build up the value of reading, right? I want to be a better reader. I want to read more because that was a great story that I just heard. All right, so hopefully you are thinking about how you make connections to your students, what you can do, right? Most things are a Google search away. And if you are a dork like me who goes down a rabbit hole, and I don't mean dork in a negative way, but if you are a person like me who is naturally curious and you want to get more information and you are excited to learn how to make things more intriguing, more inviting, more fun, more joyful, more real for students, for educators, right? For family members, then you will do what is needed to look into how to make something the best that it can possibly be. And it's iterative, right? You don't throw everything away. You should be adding to what you have. Like nothing is static. Things are dynamic. They're always changing. And so you have the ability to change your content each year, to add to it, to take away things that don't work in order to make it relevant for your students. So please do that. Think about connections that you can make that represent the students who are in your room. And R is for responsible, folks. We are responsible for what our students learn or don't learn. When I was in the classroom, I always took it personally if students didn't learn. I mean, outside of them not being there, but even in that, right? What role am I playing in my student not wanting to come to class? And it might not be about me, but if I express my concern for my student not being in class as a function of our relationship, that might make them want to come to class more. Like, look, I missed you yesterday. I really care about you. Like, what's going on? How can I help? Not just that this content or, this whatever we're doing, yes, that's important. But when students are out of school, that's problematic because it's a bigger indicator that something else is going on that may be out of their control. So how do I tap into my students and let them know that I want them here? I'm happy to see you. Glad you made it, right? Even when they're late, like, it's okay. Take a deep breath. Let's get it going because I'm glad you made it here. Right? So when you think about responsibility as an educator, what is it that you need to do to take ownership for how your students learn? And I'm not saying that you don't. I'm just saying what else may you have not considered? What else might you want to lean into? And really, I'll extrapolate that to all of the R's, right? How can you think about what you can do to be more relevant in terms of connecting your students to curriculum? What can you do with those routines? We already talked about that. But what also might you do to overcome challenges to feeling like you're responsible for somebody else's learning, right? We've signed up for the job, but what can I do more of to help my student? And sometimes more is just 1%. I'm not asking you to go and, rewrite your curriculum or go to everybody's house after school, because those things are not practical. But how can you set yourself up for success? How can you set your students up for success in your scope of responsibility, what you can do in your classroom? So I would love to see some more folks share in the chat what you are thinking. You all have kind of gone silent. And so hopefully that is a sign that you are thinking about some things. But I would love if anyone would want to come off mute, or if you would drop in the chat some things that you are thinking as it relates to the R of relevance, routine, responsibility, and relationship. Because even though, like I said, that was something that came to me, how do we think about relationship? And not just necessarily relationship with our students, but also relationship with our colleagues in order to make learning better for all students.
Coming up with some other resources that Mike can bridge the gap with everyone, and trying to connect with some community organizations, trying to have some more active events in the school to get kids to come, and parents to get more involved.
I love that, Ms. Elkins. We often say, the parents aren't involved, the parents aren't involved. So what resources do we need? What do parents want? What do parents need so that they can engage, so that they can tap in to what we provide to them and to their children in the schoolhouse? All right, so we're gonna keep it moving because time is looking good. We just might get through all of this. I know I talk fast. So here we go. The C is packed, right? The C is packed. Respect is free. It doesn't cost us anything to be good to people, to be kind to people, to be respectful of people's opinions and ideas and thoughts. And one of the things that I really love about this generation of young people is that they really are learning how, in many cases, to be kind to one another, to not be so judgmental and mean-spirited toward one another, to really honor people for who they are. Like, I'm not gonna not like you because of how you look or how you dress or how your hair is. And so when we can teach our students, right, to respect one another and to be patient with one another, that is a beautiful way for us to lean into this culturally conscious, connected, and collaborative classroom space. I see some things in the chat. I do a circle every day, and we do basically a SEL check-in. So my students know every day I care about how they're doing, and they have opportunities to share. I also have I wish my teacher knew mailbox for students who don't want to disclose out loud. Thank you, Ms. Brennan, Amber, for inviting students to show up as their authentic selves, because that's really what this slide is about. It's about my students come to school as they are, and we love each other anyway. We care for each other anyway. We take care of each other anyway. And that's incredibly integral to having those strong relationships. Relationships with students is key to successful classrooms and having strong school community. Thank you, Janet Sadai. You are 100% correct. Relationships are key. When we start and lead with relationship, and that's why I dropped that resource in, because it is just a bevy of probably 21 activities that you can use over the first 3 weeks of school. And you don't have to do, all of them at once. You can do one a day. You can do, but you have to establish an opportunity for students to get to know one another and to get to know you, and you get to know them, because that is what will carry you through the school year. If you go in and you start talking about math and science and English language arts and social studies without setting the tone for relationship and how we interact with one another, you're going to be dealing with classroom management issues all year, because you haven't laid the foundation for joy in your classroom. Remember, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. When you have clear expectations, right, for how we treat one another, when you have clear rules, and you may have to remind students about those things throughout the school year. Undoubtedly, you will, because that prefrontal cortex is still developing. They don't have it all together. But that's why they come to school, so that they can learn how to be good people, but in a way that doesn't squash who they are. Peer relationships are a great opportunity to model healthy relationships to students. Yes, they are. Thank you, Alexandria. Relationships give students time to share what is on their mind as it relates to their lives and their learning. Wow, that's beautiful, Christy. That's beautiful. That's what it's about. And so we have to not just share that with one another. We've got to share that with our parents. We've got to share that with community. We've got to share that with our students. They need to be able to have a space to speak, because the person who does the talking does the learning. At the IEP, we take a look at what's happening at home to see if there's anything we can help or provide. Ask the parents how they feel the school is providing. Absolutely. Get that feedback, but don't just listen, then do something about it. Put it into action. We focus a lot on life skills. And so let me had a little activity for you all. And so I'm going to drop this link in the chat. And it is a 4-square. And so basically you can share the ideas that you have about what is happening in the space of a classroom, right? I see you all logging in. Excellent. Thank you so much. And being able to talk about what it looks like to, sounds like, feels like to have a culturally conscious classroom. What it looks like, sounds like, feels like to have a collaborative classroom. What it looks like, sounds like, feels like to have a connected classroom. What it looks like, sounds like, feels like to have the arc of joy in your classroom. So go ahead and fill that out, populate it. You've got access to it. You'll always have access to it, because it's for you. It's for us to build community together, right? And these are the kinds of activities that you can do with your students. Morning meeting, morning and closing meetings. You all are on it. So the other thing, I guess, is that as you lean into this work, you do this work well, how do you spread your joy, right? How do you identify these joyful tactics and share that joy with your colleagues so that it becomes infectious? You got to get critical mass in your school and your building. Sometimes teachers can be curmudgeons. It's not on purpose. They can't help themselves, but they need joyful folk like you who are sharing all of this great information, right? So that our school community is reflective of this, not just a few classrooms, not just a few spaces, but this is how our school gets together. This is how our school gets down. This is how we work it out together. Beautiful. It's beautiful. You all are really going at it, and I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing with one another. So, Andretta Tucker says that the students help develop the classroom rules so that everyone knows the expectations of the community. That's how you build community. It's by involving everybody. It's not this top-down thing. This is my classroom. We're going to do what I say do. That's not joyful. That's not joyful. That's not joyful. So how do we create community in our classroom so that everybody has a voice, so that everybody has a say. And then I don't mind following the rules because I know I've had some input in the rules. I understand what the rules are. I understand what the expectations are. So Darlene says that is harder. Sometimes I just ask them to share the best part of their day while we're lining up. Absolutely. You don't have to be a toy soldier, arms at your sides, finger to your lip, hold a bubble, all of that stuff in line. Why can't people talk in line? Is it that disruptive? When we teach our inside voice, right? We're in line, we're using our inside voice. You can talk to your neighbor. Should you pull their hair? No. Should you pinch them? No. But certainly you can be neighborly in the line. We have to learn to stop making school so punitive. It should be a space of joy where students can learn, where they can interact, where they can share. You all are still working it out. I love it. Thank you so much for leaning into this. We are on full second page. And so you will always have access to this document. You can put it up in your classroom to remind yourself of what these things look like, feel like, and sound like. You can share it with your school community. If there's a space during PLC to say, hey, I participated in Summer Blitz, and this is what we leaned into as it relates to joy in our classrooms, and this is how we want to create it. Kelly Washington says, I like to use real photos of the students in our classroom, anchor charts, posters, etc. I also make sure that commercially produced posters have diverse photos. Thank you for that. Let me see myself. Let me see myself, right? Because that makes me feel welcome. During Christmas time, Secret Santa, but instead of gifts, they write encouraging notes to one another every day. How beautiful is that? The gift of a kind word, the gift of an encouraging word. Those are things that bring joy. Thank you, Amber, for sharing. Like, those are the things that all teachers should have on their radar, right? You might not be able to do everything, but the more tools you have in your toolkit, the more work you can do, the more things you can do to make it happen. Absolutely. 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 This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. All right, we got about 10 minutes. So I think you all are still working on the Arc of Joy in the Classroom Google Doc, and that's awesome. And we're gonna keep moving because really our last step, and somebody did ask about the 3-2-1. So spell it out. The Arc of Joy in the Classroom. Our 3-2-1, 3 takeaways, 2 challenges, 1 shift in practice, 1 thing you want to do, right? 3 takeaways, 2 challenges, and 1 shift in practice, 1 thing you want to do differently. That's your own personal 3-2-1. If you want to share your 3-2-1 with the group, I welcome you to come off mute and share. Or if you want to put it in the chat, you can do your 3, your 2, or your 1. But putting it all together, right? How do we put it all together to give folks ideas about how we implement this work, how we bring this work to life, how we create joy in our classrooms? And you all have done an amazing job. I thank you. Teachers are so smart. One day, our pay is going to catch up with how brilliant we actually are.
Can you repeat that again? It was 3 takeaways, 2 challenges, and 1 what?
Shift in practice. Can you see the
Thank you.
slides? If not, yep. 3
I got
takeaways,
it.
2 challenges, 1 shift in practice, 1 thing that you want to do differently. And then I'm going to drop another resource in the chat for you. It explains 3-2-1 and how you can, it's a little slideshow. It is, make sure you let me know if you can't open it. You should be able to though, because it's a public facing document. Maybe I messed it up. Right, so this is how to actively use 3-2-1, and the language is kind of adult, so you will have to scale it down if you teach littles, but it's apropos for high school or higher, right? 3-2-1. And so, but the same principles, I guess, you can apply for younger students. So go ahead, click on that document too, have it in your long line of windows if you're like me with 52 windows open in your Google search bar. Yeah, I like information, so I tend to hold on to a lot of stuff. Fortunately, it's digital and I can just utilize what I need when I need it. So 3, 2, 1. And the 3, 2, 1 could be anything. I could have flipped them. Sometimes a 3, 2, 1 says, choose how you want to do your 3, 2, 1. These are the 3 things that I want, but you allocate the 3, the 2, or the 1, however you feel, or however you've received the information, right? So know that a 3, 2, 1 is just a formative assessment practice that gives students, gives learners some choice in how they articulate what they are learning. And so that final link in the chat is a Google Doc presentation, not a Google Doc, but a Google slide presentation for how you can utilize 3, 2, 1 in your classroom and some other ways to do that. And so again, if anybody wants to come off mute and share their 3, 2, or 1, or anything else, we welcome you to come off mute or to
Okay, I'm gonna start with my 1. I'm gonna go backwards.
Okay.
One thing I want to change is letting the students have more wiggle room in the room as far as with some of this way I run the classroom. Not too much, but just enough so they can still feel like they have a voice, even though they do it in a different way. But I want to try to do some different things with that. I teach 2nd grade, so they need to be able to have more responsibility with that. Having student jobs is one way probably that would probably fix that, so they can have more responsibility in the classroom. 2 was challenges. Still just working on that planning part as far as implementing some other things in the classroom with our scheduling and how we have to be on curriculum and have to have a certain thing done by a certain time, and sometimes you don't have specials, and just some wiggle room with that. And then the 3, the takeaways was just the art, the whole thing about this was something that's going to help build the education background for the upcoming school year.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ms. Elkins, for that wonderful share of 3, 2, 1. So I got Tina Poe. She says 3, let students talk, remind them not to judge, use more games. 2, relevancy and alternating regularly. Yes. How do I connect this back to my students? And alternating regularly between different forms of activity, I think is what I interpret that to mean, or content.
That remind is more me reminding myself that I have
Oh,
to remind them and not
yeah.
judge.
Amen, because the kids don't judge, but thank you. Thank you for honoring that for yourself. Like, I don't want to judge my kids so much. I want to let them be who they are. And allowing the students to do the majority of the talking. Yes, as teachers, we can be guilty of that, right? Because we position ourselves as the leader or as, the person who holds the information, but our students have so much in them and we got to let them get it out. Andretta, I work with preschoolers, so that would have to be 3 things you learn, 3 things you want to learn, and 1 thing you can practice more. Absolutely, that's a beautiful adaptation of 3, 2, 1 for littles. Yes. Sean Jennings, students want more connections. Being connected will be important in the early weeks. Absolutely. Please lean into that building a beloved community guide. It's got some great opportunities in there that you can scale up or scale down. They're low stakes, and you can do a lot of assessing of students' abilities in writing and reading and reasoning in some of those as well. But it won't be evident to them that you're assessing them because you're asking them to write and to share about themselves. Students' social skills are weak post-COVID. They are. And so I was going to say, sometimes students don't talk, right? Because they have not been socialized. So we have to be really intentional about re-socializing them. And if we re-socialize them with joy, we get so much more traction. Using the arc of joy throughout the year. Thank you. That's the best compliment. Joy depends on working with the students and their needs within the classroom, creating an engaging and relevant environment, and gamifying learning. Stick with a consistent routine and provide an understanding of the expectations between the students and the teacher. Create a more engaging environment using A.R.C within the classroom. You all are too kind. I thank you for coming. We're not done yet, but we're getting close. We got 2 minutes. So we started from the bottom. Now we're here. We're almost done at the finish line. Any final thoughts, ideas you would like to share about the Arc of Joy as presented today? What can I do better? What would you like to have seen more of? What did you absolutely hate? Like, this is dumb. I don't know, but please, this is your time to share. And I'm going to, for my folks who process, right, visually, this is where I started. Like I said, I embarked on this journey as a school leader, trying to figure out how to get my students engaged, how to get my teachers engaged, how to help them find a way to be more active in the classroom. So this is the philosophy and the strategies behind this work. And like I said, this is not new research, but it's ever evolving. And I think the more that we are intentional about creating joyful spaces in learning, the better we'll be at it. Practice, like all things, practice makes us better. I'm gonna give you some time to read that. It's 3:59. I am watching the clock. I appreciate you for being here on time. I believe that we start on time, we end on time. Your time is valuable to me. I thank you for spending this time with me. I'm gonna be quiet so you can read. All right, it's 4 o'clock. Thank you all so much. I appreciate you.